Welcome to Car Wash M&A, the podcast, brought to you by Amplify Car Wash Advisors, the #1 advisors of car wash chains nationwide on mergers and acquisitions and capital advisory services.
Hi, I'm Lanese Barnett, Vice President of Business Development at Amplify Car Wash Advisors, and your host of Car Wash M&A, the podcast. Here, we'll take a deep dive into the current mergers and acquisitions activity of the car wash industry, with the goal of keeping car wash owners informed on where the market is today and where it's going tomorrow, so that you can make informed decisions about your business. We'll help you answer the question, should I sell my car wash now? Or should I enter growth mode and really scale my operation? Each month, I'll speak with industry experts who will share practical advice on how to sell or scale your car wash. While the industry is undoubtedly changing, what remains constant is the need for solid information so you can evaluate where you are and chart the course for the future of your business. Hello, and welcome to episode 19 of Car Wash M&A, the podcast. Today, I have Matt DeWolf, who is also the host of Car Wash, the podcast by the ICA, the International Carwash Association. First of all, welcome, Matt. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Lanese. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, you too. So you and Jeff Pavone, our partner at Amplify Car Wash Advisors, recently recorded for your show an episode, and we're going to rebroadcast that show in its entirety after this. But I just wanted to take a few minutes to chat with you about what big themes stuck out with you from your conversation with Jeff, and then just dive deeper into a couple of those that I found really interesting as well. So first, what was the most surprising thing that Jeff shared in that recent episode about what he sees going through the end of 2023 or coming into 2024?
First of all, it's always fun to have Jeff on because I always learn something, whether that's what his favorite hooded sweatshirt is or something cool about the industry. But I think one of the things that kind of bubbled up for me was just the reality of this pause state that we're in, right? Like, we kind of felt it and you could see it in kind of the news that was coming out, but to be able to sit down and talk and say, okay, what are you actually seeing? Like, you're on the side of the business where you're doing the deals and talking to many more people than I ever am. What's happening? And to have that kind of validated that, hey, it's not bad. We're just paused. Like, we're going to settle down for a minute. We're going to work on our business. We're going to really focus on being super efficient and super profitable. And we're going to just keep going. And I thought that was super, super helpful for me, just to ground me in kind of what I look at every single day.
Right. And I totally agree with you. We had this really fervid pace of just interest in general in the car wash industry. And it, when the party's going, it seems like it's going forever, but also that when there is a pause in the music, it doesn't mean that it's completely stopped or that everything that was good about the traction and the momentum is gone, but it does have to have a more stabilized or normalized pace at some point. You can't go at the highest gear all the time. And so it seems like this is just helping that reset and recalibrate as an industry for continued interest and success overall.
Yeah, I mean, the follow-up to that, honestly, was this whole conversation around getting back to our roots, really. Jeff was talking, and I think he made some comment about the great car washers build car wash companies, not that they don't just do a great job of washing cars. And I thought that was so resonant, especially because in my mind, I was thinking about how quickly everything was going. And then as you talk to people that started to slow down, they were always talking about, well, we're going to take this time to focus on our infrastructure. And it's like, man, I get the idea that, people talk about we're trying to build the plane as it's going down the runway and taking off. And that's an approach, but you can't really do that if you don't have the parts in place.
Right.
And so that was missing. That's what's always been missing, I think.
Or the mechanics to build anything.
Right.
Like, you have to have some of these things there. Otherwise, that's just a, hope and a dream. I loved that too. And the idea that the successful car wash companies are successful companies, period. Yeah. They are successful entrepreneurs. They are focusing their time and resources on their team, their leadership, their ability to build a culture within their organization to then take that culture and resonate it or outwardly showcase that to their customers or to be able to provide that great experience. But they need to feel like they're empowered and they know what's going on and feel part of the team, feel validated so that they can share that. And this is a feel good service where we want people to come and enjoy the experience of getting their car washed. A lot of times, this is 5, 10, 12 years ago, but we would talk about people washing their car in with going to the bank, getting their dry cleaning, and that it was this chore or commodity that was very interchangeable, that was like on this checklist of like, wah, 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 wah. Yeah. And then now it's a totally different experience. And I really value the car wash industry for embracing that experiential nature and really pushing the boundaries on how we can, lean into that and do more and be creative. And I think that's a really cool part of it.
Well, I think it's only going to get better. I mean, now that we are so much more visible, and there's so much more interest, both just in general terms and from a financial perspective, right? All this money came into the industry. We can do so much more. It's pushing so much innovation, and it's pushing all of these really great entrepreneurs in this industry to think differently and to like stretch those muscles, right? Like people were kind of building up their businesses and maybe we're like getting pretty comfortable doing that. And now there's all this new challenge and all this new pressure. And it's like, it's a really kind of perfect place, I think, for those folks who do a great job to really expand and disrupt in new and exciting ways. I'm super excited to see what comes out of that.
Yeah. And it's mirroring that strength in the core infrastructure of just the sound business practices, but also the ones that are more like apt to lean into innovation and embracing new technologies or trying different things, that just because XYZ has been done a certain way doesn't mean that there's not another way to do it. And I know you guys touched on some new technology and different just things that are coming out with kiosks or with how companies are adding locations or maybe having acquisitions, and then how do they fold those into their system. And there's new and creative ways that companies, that these solutions providers are providing that answer, that option to look at it differently than just the same one way that's being done, like rip everything out, put the same system in, or however.
Well, yeah. And I mean, that's the area, right, where it seems like we're most ripe for kind of disruption. And at some point, when money is expensive and there isn't enough of it, you got to make some decisions. And so I think the technology that's coming out of that is going to be super fascinating. And it's something like we've been talking about for a long time, right? Like, when are we going to get to be at a point where we have stuff like the McDonald's, pay stations where you're just tapping in your order? Or like, how are we going to leverage some of this data that we're able to start collecting now and use smartly to create better customer experiences? I think we are so early on in all of this. It's going to be super exciting.
I do too. And I always love sharing in that enthusiasm with you on like the kind of nerdy marketing and experience side, and just watching the industry over time. And I mean, really coming from here, are you going to laminate your piece of paper on your clipboard when you
right.
put it in the customer's window? Or are you going to make them memorize the script? I mean, there's so many things that have advanced that we have been kind of, as an industry, we have the opportunity, you're right, to keep pushing this further. And with money being more expensive, necessity breeds innovation. So it does make that ripe time for all the kind of right ingredients to explore new ways of doing things that can be really exciting.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Lanese. Like, we didn't have to for a long time. Nothing was pushing us to. So if somebody got a really great idea and they wanted to try it, they could go do that, but they didn't need to. And now you do need to. You need to be differentiated. And I think the thing that you made me think about as you're talking about kind of data and experiences that we shouldn't leave out is the employee experience, right? I mean, the way that we can enable employees and make them feel good about their experience every day is being totally enabled because of data, because we can see how they're performing. We can optimize for that. We can get our own operational numbers much faster than we ever could before. And we can start seeing that in a dashboard that helps us make decisions. And then our employees feel good about that. And they feel the whole success of the organization, instead of like waiting for a quarterly report to come out and wondering, oh, well, I tried this change in my sales tactics and I don't know if it worked until 3 months later. That doesn't feel good.
Right. And even with that, having the employee have that onus to where they have to make the change in their sales tactic to see if it works, when really we need better training or to think through those. How can we empower them to have these tools and resources to be successful? I was on a car wash tour with one of the associations, and I saw at one of the places inside the office area, it was an express exterior, but they had an office with an employee lounge and things like that. But they had a table and it had headphones with it, and it was a dedicated training area. And I just loved it because this is a new employee's desk that has their, training computer or tablet set up that they're going to go to, that they're going to complete these modules. But the idea of the dedicated space for a new employee to have a temporary home while they're getting things figured out, and watching so many, especially young kids, come in and maybe it's their first job and they just are they don't know what to do and they don't have a place yet. And so that intentionality of like, this is your training area, just watching things like that. I love seeing that and seeing the thoughtfulness and how we can keep taking those ideas, and there's endless possibilities to just keep going. And so you and Jeff talked about, where are we in kind of the inning cycle or the life cycle? But I'm with you. I see that there's endless possibilities to keep advancing. And every time I think I have even something figured out, there's this whole other, universe behind there. That's the tip of the iceberg.
That's so true. Yeah. I mean, it's not any different from, when we discovered the express exterior model, right? It's like, oh, look at this amazing thing. And here we are. Right. Look at what that has bred.
Doesn't that sound so funny? Guess what? We're going to have them stay in their car.
Free.
They're not going to do
vacuums.
it. They won't do it.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Now I will say, I maybe have shared this story with you before, but I was on the customer end of being super uncomfortable in a car wash when I got a chance to visit Repsol over in Spain, and they were showing me some of their washes, and in that area, it's a lot of in-bays, and they have a really amazing. Know that
because I totally have been there too.
Yeah. It's like they have this awesome mobile app, right? And so they're showing me how that all worked and how the kiosk was going to work, and we pull up, and you scan the thing, and then like you pull the car up, you park in the normal spot where you would in a rollover or an in-bay, and you get out, and I was like, whoa, what are you guys doing?
Excuse me?
Yeah. And they're like, oh, we're going to go get a coffee while it washes our car. And I'm like, that would not work in the United States. We would be so confused, and people would be so mad that someone left their car.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like when you see somebody going in for the gas, like they're pumping their car,
like,
they leave it out there like, whoa.
Yeah. Get your gas and go park and then go get your thing. Yeah. It's funny.
Oh yeah, the disruption of that. Well, and even in your conversation with Jeff, and he was talking about indoor vacuums and things like that, which we think, wow, indoor vacuums, but this is just we have our own kind of places that we have advanced and brought the industry forward in certain areas, but then there's other parts of the world that they've been doing things in a different way for a long time. So it's sharing that information and sharing that experience to kind of, keep iterating what this looks like. And I love the travel that you guys do with the International Carwash Association and seeing those different ways, that you can mix and take that and learn from each other. And it's still, I think, very communal, and people are happy to share information because they're so jazzed about it. I mean, you just get these really passionate people that are really excited car washers.
Well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with kind of driving innovation, right? And the only way you can do that is if you get out of your little box and look bigger. And we're starting to see this all over the place, right? You've got cool mobile stuff happening in the Spanish market. You've got some really awesome point of sale stuff happening in Australia. You've got great operations happening in Germany, like in the Netherlands, like we always know happens. But even in the US now, you're starting to see some of this disruption as it comes down to mobile apps and the whole customer payment experience.
Right.
We were talking earlier, right, about how we got the video of the new kind of kiosk from Amp, and it's like, I never thought I'd spend 9 minutes of my life watching a video about a payment terminal, but I sure did.
I know. I mean, I was like, oh, white. Oh my gosh. Yay.
Ooh, and then you do what? Oh, great.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was very, very cool. Very well done. And I love the sophistication that we're seeing in the industry and just this, not just the professionalization, but this taking those ideas and making them sharp and look cool and be user friendly and sleek. And that's really, that's so fun to watch. And especially when you see the benefit on the customer side and the operator side, like they're getting better user interface, but also the customer's getting a better user interface as well. Like it's simultaneous.
Well, and the reality is customers expect more. I mean, especially now with the membership model and the introduction of that, they really do expect more. I mean, that is their car wash, right? I'm a member of that car wash. That is my car wash, and it better be great.
Right. Especially, they're paying you whether it's used or not. And they expect definitely a certain level of service. And there's kind of a little bit of a, for better or for worse, the entitlement of, this is mine because I've paid into this.
Paid for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I paid. Yeah, exactly. So better give me my free towel.
Yeah. And I'm probably going to steal it just for the record.
Some of them are good. Got a couple car wash towels. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I mean, I have a box of them. Sorry. It happens. Well,
and I mean, if they really, there's cameras everywhere. So, it's like, hi, I'm going to take this towel.
Yeah. What are they going to do?
I don't know. I've seen signs that say, be prepared. There's RFID tags in these towels.
Oh, that's funny. Maybe that's the new innovation. That's going to drive profitability. And I feel bad for the person that has to sew those RFID tags into all of those towels.
Yeah. No, that's why you just got to put some marketing on them. And then, they have it in their car floating around with your name on it.
It's a cost center. It's totally a cost center.
I agree. So Matt, we could talk forever. You are one of my favorite people to talk all things car wash with. And I appreciate your time coming on today. And I loved hearing the conversation with Jeff, but also just the chance that you and I get to just chit chat about all of these great things as well. And so thanks for your advocacy for our industry and just being such a great voice for us and a good friend and a good human being as you have on your show.
Oh, thanks, Lanese. No, I appreciate everything you guys are doing. I love that I'm not the only person podcasting in the space. So it's nice to talk shop a little bit, right? But I've always appreciated your approach to when you were on the operator side to how you market and how you get information out. So I'm just grateful for your friendship.
Oh, it got me a little teary. Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So stay tuned here. You'll hear the full episode of The Great Market Pause with Jeff Pavone and Matt DeWolf.
Welcome to Car Wash, the podcast, your source for real stories and real business insights from the experts, both in and out of the car wash industry. So put it in neutral, feet off the brakes, and take your hands off the steering wheel. Here is your guide on this journey. Car Wash Magazine Editor-in-Chief, Matt DeWolf.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Car Wash, the podcast. This is the podcast, of course, that makes you a better car washer and a slightly better human being. Now, for a long time, we've been talking about this booming industry, this crazy car wash industry, and how fast everything's been growing and changing. And we're going to talk about how it continues to change today. And to do that, I'm going to bring in Jeff Pavone from Amplify Car Wash Advisors. He's going to talk to us a little bit about how maybe this thing is slowing down a little bit, and how we might need to rethink what we thought was happening last year, because things are a-changing, as they say. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt, thank you. Again, as always, it's a pleasure to be on the show, and look forward to a good interview here.
Well, I was just saying before we got started that I think you hold the record for most appearances on the podcast, and I don't know if I should congratulate you or say sorry.
No. Well, we appreciate it. And at the end of the day, this space is definitely volatile and it's changing in real time. So I do think, keeping the information fresh and in real time is important.
Yeah. So the last time we had you on would have been the end of the year last year. And we were talking a lot then about, I think we called that one the Great Market Reset. Because the year leading up to that was pretty crazy. Then we're going to start talking about the market resetting. What are you seeing, and maybe what have you seen over the last kind of 12 months, 10 to 12 months in the market now?
All right. Yeah, I really would say we had I'll call this the great pause for 2023, right? And I think there's, a variety of reasons. When you look at all the headwinds, we're sitting here with interest rates that continue to grow. We had no control over inflation at the time. Labor reports weren't very good. And it just, and then credit came to a screeching halt almost for most platforms. And so, the pause really had to be, you had to see, first off and foremost, most platforms had to look at their own debt structure and say, how do we fix this going forward? And it wasn't easy. I mean, because, not only was it expensive, it was really hard to come by. So that was sort of I would say a priority. The second thing, I think, most platforms started to do is they really, for the first time, they had they had a platform, they had data, they have a lot more information, and they're smarter, they're more educated, and they had to take a step back and look at, how are their platforms performing? How are their platforms performing to projections? Really getting a much better feel for what they own was important. I think they had to get a better grip around the investment community and where multiples were going to settle in at. So we had a lot of factors here that just said, you know what, it's time to pause and just see how this all shakes out before we can move forward.
Yeah, we had this period where I think I said before that the whole industry was sort of like the surface of the sun. It was so hot and it was so growing so fast, and a lot of that initially was through acquisition. Which is what we're kind of talking about with the platforms, right? They were going out and buying up a lot of locations. And then we got into this phase where it was like, okay, let's build our own because everything's getting a little too expensive to go acquire. Let's build our own. Let's do some greenfield development because we can do that more cost effectively. Now it seems like we're sitting in this space where we got to be really great operators, right? And this is what you're talking about with now we have KPIs, now we have some metrics, now we can look at our overall kind of wash portfolio and say, okay, where do we need to move and change and adjust and really get efficient with what we're doing? Yeah, what are you seeing people, especially, I know you talk a lot with some of the platforms. What are you seeing people do? I mean, there's a little bit of, in the social media space, people are starting to identify some store closings, right? Mm-hmm. Is that something that you think we should be worried about?
Well, I don't know about worried, but, at the end of the day, all businesses have cycles, and we were certainly in an environment of get big fast, and I don't know if you remember the internet days, but that was sort of the mantra, get big fast, right? And then all of a sudden we saw the internet space implode, right? Because it went from get big fast to get profitable fast. Did it mean the internet was a lousy business? No, not really. It meant that the quality companies we're going to long term. This is a marathon, and so in the car washing space, I really think it went from get big fast, and it was all about unit growth. And then it became obvious that you've got an operating business here, and I think today going forward, we're seeing the operators really reassessing everything they bought, and it really is getting profitable. The bottom line is they've got to service some very expensive debt, and they got investors that are expecting a return. And so, now it's no longer a matter of just deploying capital for the sake of growth. It's got to be deploying capital, then they want a return on that growth. So I think you will see some units, if it makes sense, to close. I think you'll see on the greenfield front, you'll see much more selective, disciplined greenfield. And I think on the M&A side, you'll see M&A being done, but it'll be done, I would say, a lot smarter, right? At the end of the day, they have a lot more knowledge, the buyers. So the way to characterize this is they brought professionalism into the space today. Mm-hmm. Before, they had nothing to base it on. They were just buying without having a lot of experience. Today, it's becoming very professionalized, and the business is trying to stabilize. So I think you'll see an emphasis on quality versus quantity. And so if there's some stores closing, it's probably for the right reasons. And you'll see again a real focus in driving more value from each of the assets that they currently own.
Yeah, and I mean that's just good business, right? I mean you need to run a profitable business. You can't live in this space where we're gonna have some loser locations and we're just gonna hang on to those. That makes no sense. And I think that's what we're seeing with these groups now being able to be smarter about how they're running business. They're just making the hard decisions and they're doing what's best for them.
I think you're right. I think this is the good that's come out of this is we've actually we do know it's a good business. We've got a very high acceptance rates of memberships. Memberships have stayed stabilized, if not growing. The consumer loves the product. And we've got really high margin business. And so this is a really good business to be in. So I think you'll see stabilized growth going forward. I think you'll see some of the platforms are going to come out of the gates very soon with fresh capital on their balance sheet and look to really start expanding. But they'll do it with a lot more knowledge behind them, and it'll be a very controlled, smart growth, which is long term good for everybody.
Yeah, and steals a little bit from some of the great operators in this industry, right? Those groups that we've watched over the years since kind of the inception of this industry grow at really really strong conservative paces where they had everything set up, they had great infrastructure, they had their processes down, and they could then scale that very smartly. That's starting to move over into this platform space as well. So that's going to be fun to watch.
You're right. And Matt, at the end of, I really, when you look at this is, the great operators have one thing in common. They build car wash company, right? They don't just build car washes, and it's consistent. If you look at all the top brands out there, they have a tremendous infrastructure and team, not only on their car wash locations, but at their corporate level that's driving volume. And now you're seeing some of that professionalism, flow through to a lot of the platforms. They're getting it, and they're going to be using that to their advantage.
So when you think about, we're talking about platforms having more data now and having a little bit more experience under their belts as they're kind of coming in to this thing. Now, is that something that you think kind of the smaller operator needs to be concerned about? Like how does this play out for, the people that have 2 and 5 and 10 and 20 locations as this kind of dynamic shifts?
So yeah, great question. And I look at it, I go, first off, take the platforms, right? The data they're going to be looking for could be, competition. They're going to dive deeper in it and say, okay, is it cannibalizing it? At the end of the day, there's, if you've got 2 or 3 car washes that are in the market that are both all convenient, there is going to be some impact on your numbers, right? And so when you look at, how a smaller operator to be looking at this thing is they've got to be looking at it and saying, some operators, even great operators I've seen have just incredible numbers, but they're not immune from having competition that's just come into their market. And at some point, even if they lose some share of their market, it's just real. You're not going to get your car washed 2 or 3 times a day like a cup of coffee. So it doesn't work the same way. I think you've got to be very sensitive to what's going on around you and who's building, because, most of these new tunnels coming in, even if it's take a fraction of your business, it's going to slow down some of your growth. And I look at, a lot of the trends right now you're going to see is going to be, you're going to see the customer experience. I think, for a long time, it was all about adding units and growth through units. I think today it's going to be, how do we differentiate? How do we improve our customer experience? We're seeing a lot of innovation in technology that's going to start having a way better educated a operator that's going to know just how many times you've been to the site, what how frequently you're coming, and more importantly, how to keep you coming back and building more stickiness. So I think the smaller operators got to start also playing in that same game of looking at, what technology is out there to really make sure that they're staying in the forefront of knowing everything they can about the customer on their lot and how to keep them.
Yeah, I love the sophistication that is starting to come with all of this, right? All of this ability to really think about that customer experience end to end, and even from before they get to your actual wash. That's only possible because some of these groups came in and started thinking that way. And it's like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And to your point, Jeff, about differentiation, like it's you have to be different today. Because let's be honest, an express car wash, you can only build them so many different ways. So and to the average consumer, unless you're really doing something crazy at your location, you're not going to look that different from the one that's maybe down the road. So this experiential focus, I think, is going to be super important as we go forward.
Right. And the good news is we're seeing a lot of technology, a lot of solution that's coming into the tunnel. That's going to be, and it's here now. And so, I do think you'll see some really exciting, cool things happening on a site level, where, people will get, they're going to figure out what to do with all this data they're getting and how to maximize that into a return for them.
Yeah. It's like you were talking about, right? First you got to get the data, and as you're collecting it now you've got a baseline. Now you know that you've got something, and you can start dissecting it and analyzing it and diving in and doing all the super fun stuff that will really set you apart. I want to talk a little bit about that technology space and that innovation space. What do you think? Where do you think we are ripe for some disruption, kind of going in the next couple of years? There's certainly a lot of talk about first off, cost. Right? Yeah.
This cost has gotten expensive to build these car washes. At the end of the day, we're finding there's a lot of concern about how do we drive this cost down. And I do think you'll start looking at parts of the business, whether it's the POS or whatever else seems to be the hot topic today of where, that market's going to go. But I can tell you there's only so much tolerance for costs going up. And I think every part of your build is going to start looking at it. And so from a advancement in technologies, I do think you're going to see there's some young, nimble companies that are going to be able to give you the tools to interact with your customers better. They're going to give you ways to get them on the lot, to keep them. And with some of these younger, innovative companies, they're going to have a real advantage on cost. But I do think you're going to find tremendous pressure from the big players to start driving costs down. Cost of chemistry. They're going to look at every line item now to making sure that they can get these things profitable.
Yeah, it's interesting. It will. I mean, good operators do this already, right? They're looking at stuff pretty closely. But when you get to the point where you're having to ask yourself, what level of profitability am I comfortable with now that competition has taken some of that away from me? That question changes a little bit, and you look a little harder for those little pieces. It's a real thing.
That's right. I mean, and any advantage you can use to you have to be getting it. And I do think it's going to come. I think the advantages will come. First off, let's assume you all build a great facility.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to how well do you know your customers? How do you interact with them? How you can reach them? And there are really powerful new apps and tools out there that, if you come into my wash, let's say once or twice, I can go, "Hi, Matt. How you doing? How you enjoying the experience?" And you'll start seeing some more personalization going on. The other kind of tools you'll see out there are, take memberships. We all experience churn in this business. The question is, are you learning from the churn, right?
Yeah.
And there are tools out there and companies out there that now that we know of that will take that data, and it could be one rogue agent. It could be all of a sudden you're getting more churn at one of your locations because that demographic is a little weaker, and it just got more. Maybe it's the economy affecting a location, but I can tell you that kind of data is going to be the stuff that's really going to be in the forefront of I think of car wash operators going forward.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, and it's an exciting time to be kind of hanging around this space. That's for sure. What does all of this mean as you think about? I mean, obviously, part of your business is to help people do deals, right? Are deals still happening, Jeff?
Yeah.
Is everything okay?
Certainly, I'd say Christmas has slowed down, right? We had Christmas every day last year and the last few years. I'd say deal flow, plus or minus came down 75%. I think the market just had to take this pause. We as a firm, again, maybe it's just advantage of being old, right? I've been through cycles before, and I knew when things were going up, we weren't that good, and I knew the market couldn't long term continue to go at that pace. And so, we invested heavily into converting our firm to a full service advisory firm. So really sitting in there and saying, the question we always got to ask is, how do we want to be value creators? And how are we going to drive value? And again, at the end of the day, if you're an emerging firm and building out, you're not ready to sell. And selling in a market that you have very few buyers, probably not a smart thing either. Today, the good news is we are finding buyers coming back, by the way. We have a very, very strong, the good news is the buyers came back and we've got a strong fourth quarter of closing deals. So we're excited about that part of it, but we've evolved to a point where we do want to help operators, and the advisory side is looking at, let's say, you've got a chain and you're paying $1 a car for chemistry, and we can get your cost down to 60 cents. There's a million light items that having more data and having more expertise, because again, we've got guys on our team that have been around for 40 plus years on the highest level in operations. We're going to dig deep into knowing these costs, help benchmarking some of it. We're also going to sit there and help operators understand what are buyers looking for today, like in real time. There's a lot of talk about multiples and valuations. I can tell you the only ones that matter are what things are trading today, right? Yeah. And so, I do think there's going to have to be a lot more education to the smaller operators. A lot of them, are working really hard on their own company, and they don't have the exposure to all of the advancements that are happening in the space, or even some of the, the KPIs. And so, for us, it gives us an opportunity to step in and really provide that kind of value to an operator. And eventually at some point, if you create value for them, hopefully at some point when they transact, they're going to use you.
So talk about that evolution a little bit for you all, right? So you started down this path of kind of making sure you had all the elements of an advisory firm in place. What were you kind of watching when that started to happen? Like, what did you see?
Well, I mean, at some point, the pain points became at that get big fast kind of process went on, we sort of realized that there's going to be real integration problems and stresses, right? We also looked at it, come out of a technology background. We also looked at how fast technology could impact the growth of this business. And we felt that there was real opportunity. So, sometimes where we see some of these things going on, we've got to look and say, it's not all bad. We got to just look at where are the opportunities here. And so, we're fortunate to have, we've got, Wall Street level, investment bankers on our team that, to understand where the capital markets were going. We also have some of the best operators in the country and to understand, how operators should be performing. And so, I just think today for us, it's all about, trying to put that knowledge out in the hands. So we giving you the advantages that some of the other folks have. But we just started seeing it, again, like I said, 18 months ago when people were buying at a furious pace. And again, the buying was more done on a matter of fear of losing a deal than anything else. Right. And we knew that that's not sustainable. Right. Yeah. And so at some point we had to look at this thing and say, what role do we want to play? And we were happy to do those deals. There's nothing wrong with it, but we knew at some point we needed to get down to how do we help stabilize this business long term and add value. But I think the platforms have gotten really smart really fast, and I would say they brought professionalism into the space. If you look at some of the leaders now running these companies, look at, Mammoth's president and look at some of the other companies out there that have brought in just absolutely, very, very smart guys that understand how to scale retail. I think that professionalism is going to go a long way. And for us, as we started looking at that, we had to help prepare the operators to fit within that box too, right? How do they get more professional in their running of their business?
As you were talking about kind of where Amplify is going and kind of the changes that you all have made, it made me appreciate what you all do, because you guys have always been all about being that trusted advisor, right? Like you want to be there alongside the operator and help them get the best possible situation for themselves. And that comes out in lots of the deals and stuff that you all do. But I think honestly, while that's core to who you are, it's also just really darn smart, Jeff, because you're able to position Amplify in a way that's like, who else would we use? We worked with this group to help us become a super profitable organization. We built this car wash company, and now it's time for us to do something else. Of course, I'm going to use the person that helped me turn my business into something amazing. I think it's smart, but not to be missed. It is core to what you guys have always been, which is in it to help operators maximize their experience in this business. So I love that part of it. But
appreciate that.
It's also smart. Talk to me a little bit about what the next year looks like, right? What are you kind of watching as we go forward into 24? So
here's the really good news, right? I couldn't say this a month ago. I could tell you today, we've seen inflation come under control. I mean, I don't know. I think what I've read as early as this morning was, under 3. We're seeing the Fed's pause. I wouldn't. So the one thing I won't expect, I think we've seen the valuations now really reset, and I don't see that changing. The operators that are looking to say that at some point interest rates are going to drop and there's going to be this major reset, that's just not going to happen. I think interest rates can go down a little, but we're going to see a very disciplined buyer that has a lot of data now and they know what they're looking at. So, but on a go forward basis, the good news is you've got an inflation that's under control. I think you've got a consumer that's proved to be resilient and looking good. Are we out of this recession fear? Maybe, but it certainly feels like from an economy standpoint, we're doing quite well. The consumer is still quite stretched if you're looking at that side of it. So we've got to be a little concerned about that. And really important is that the majority of the platforms that are going to be around for a long time are getting fresh capital. And you're going to see some announcements any day now coming out, and you're going to see some really, I think you'll see a push by some of these stronger platforms that were disciplined, look to expand and growth, because this is going to be a tale of, I think, of two sides. You got some platforms and chains that probably just didn't grow as smart as they should have. And you're finding others that really took a very, I'd say, good controlled strategy. Now will come with really some fresh capital, and I think I think we'll definitely see more deals closing in the coming year than we did this year. But I think they're going to be structured. I think that the operator and the seller, there's going to be some creativity and a structure to how deals get done. But I think you're going to find buyers now, they've recapped their balance sheets. They're ready to go. They know where they want to grow. So I think that's going to be positive. From the public markets, you've seen, a lot of, bad news that happened over the recent times. And I think going forward, we're already saying, Mr. come out of it, right? Mr. hit a low, maybe about a week and a half ago. They're already up almost, I think, 30% since, in the last couple of weeks. So I think we're just going to be, I think all together, we're going to see stabilization, going forward and a much professional buyer going forward. But I do think that's good for everybody. So, we're excited about to see where how this market shakes out. But we're going to see, again, innovation and technology, really, you'll see really fast growth in 2024. I think we started to see the tip of the iceberg in 23. I think in 2024, you're going to see accelerated, technologies coming into these tunnels like you've never seen before. AI, some other really cool things are going to be happening. So, we're looking forward to 2024 as being an exciting time for the car wash market. So, cheers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you're talking, I think maybe one of the first times you were on the podcast, we were talking about what inning are we in of this whole consolidation thing? And I think at the time we were still thinking we were pretty early innings. At some point in the last couple of years, we thought that maybe we were getting a little further along in the game. I feel like, Jeff, honestly, it seems like we've gone backwards in innings because of this kind of pause, right? Like we're still looking at, when you look at the top location or top car wash organizations by number of locations, from a market share perspective, that is still so unbelievably low, which I think is great because that means there's still tons of opportunity out there for folks. I think sometimes it's just a little hard to see that opportunity when you're kind of in it day to day and you're looking at these numbers and you're getting these data points. You're spending too much time watching the stock prices of these larger groups. That's not indicative of what's going on everywhere. There's tons of opportunity. There's lots of space to grow still. I'm pretty excited for 2024 too, but I will ask you, and maybe we'll switch the analogy. Instead of what inning are we in, what quarter of the basketball game are we in, Jeff?
I still think we've got a long way to go. I mean, we're maybe call it in the second half, right? Because when I look at it, there's still white space. Now, with that said, what we are learning is there's certain markets that got less white space, right? That are starting to get saturated. When you look at markets like Phoenix, Boise, some of these other markets, and you start looking at the amount of car washes, there's only, you only need so many car washes per customer, right? And so some of these markets are starting to feel that saturation point, but there's other markets that have a lot of growth. I do think you're going to see, in 2024, you're going to see a few of these brands come out of this and look a lot different than next year. I think you're going to see some real winners that are going to have some fairly aggressive growth. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see, a couple of consolidators come together. You also got to look at the gas C-store, guys that entered the space, and, they've entered it, I would say with initial acquisitions. They're still trying to learn the market, figure it out. But as they get smarter, you're going to start seeing, them sort of continue to grow. So, I do think from an inning standpoint, we still got, I think, plenty of opportunity to continue to grow. I just think it's going to be, for sure. I think we're in the second half of this. I think we're just going to fill in the markets that we're in a lot smarter. And we're going to try to get more out of it. The other thing that could surprise you is going to be, I think, some differentiators that are going to come to the market. We're already seeing some guys playing around with, indoor vacuums, maybe some flex washes. I just think the one size fits all, model that was building out there. I think you're going to see a few guys start getting a little more innovative and creative, because I think the customer wants it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will put this out into the universe as my one crazy idea that I've been thinking about for a while. I am interested in seeing someone do an interior clean only. Okay. So think about that. Interior express only. So the flex side of the business, but no wash components. Now, maybe that's a dumb idea, and it probably is. Well, but that's the kind of stuff that, might happen.
I'll tell you some of the innovation I've seen in person this year. I've been in a warehouse, and I've watched the inside of a car wash being cleaned by robots.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So when I say there's still a lot of innovation ahead, like the labor side of it is probably one of the biggest challenges that we all have, right? But I think you're going to find labor coming together with technology to start solving the problem. I don't think you're going to solve the problem with just labor alone. I think you're going to see technology is going to be a very important component in the car washing. So you're just going to see. I do think we're going to see innovation like crazy this year, because, especially, the good news is you got a lot more tunnels, you got a lot more customers. So it becomes more profitable, but we're going to see innovation come from all angles, because it's still a very good business, very profitable business. So it'll be fun to see some of the new stuff that's going to come out.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited to see what the wash of the future looks like. I think it's going to be super fun to watch. The question I have to ask you to wrap this all up, Jeff, is one of my favorites, because it gets back to the idea of making people better humans, right? So you can answer this however you want, but I want to ask you about something that we can do today, whether we're an operator, whether we're just a human being at home with our families. What's something we can do today that's going to make us better tomorrow?
God, I can tell you how we approach things, and it's all, our culture is built about being generous, right? Being givers, and everything we do, there's a lot of people out there that are always taking. I would just say, in general, be a giver, right? I mean, if somebody needs help, give them some advice. There's a lot of, at the end of the day, most of us have more than we need. There's a lot of people that can use our help. I mean, we as a business are down significantly over the years past, but our giving went up. We did not stop our giving. And at the end of the day, we felt, for us we have car washes. We're continuing to tie to communities. And again, that's another way of how as an operator you can become successful, is be part of the community. You're just not a car wash. And so set up some giving programs. But I think in general, I think all of us can really look in the mirror and say, how can we be a better giver? And I promise you, it comes back to you tenfold.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that piece of advice, be generous, be a giver, is something that can really differentiate you, because not everybody is, right? Not everybody is. And so that stuff, when it's genuine, like you all do, really stands out. And I think it's something awesome to see.
I appreciate it. And, for us, it's, it's all about relationships. Our way we look at everybody is we want to listen. We want to hear what your concerns are or what's going on in your life and really try to build a bond and relationship. We're not in it for the short haul. This is again, just like the car wash chains and operators. I think this is a marathon and we run our business like a marathon. We're not looking short term. And I think, we've got to make smart decisions. We've got to be looking ahead. If you just look at the world and the way it is today, it scares the heck out of you. And there's, it's hard to watch the news, what's going on around the world. But I think at the end of the day, what we can do is we can impact as many people in our circle as possible. And that's all we can do.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Jeff, I will let you get back to your busy day here. As your deals have been picking up. That's great news for Amplify. But I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. I expect that we will have you back again. So thank you again, Jeff.
Anytime, Matt. Thanks again for having us.
Car Wash the podcast is your source for real stories and real business insights from the experts, both in and out of the car wash industry. Our show helps investors, owners, operators, and managers think about ways to enhance their business. Our podcast is a free on-demand audio program that provides information on the latest trends impacting the industry, tips from successful industry leaders, and inspiration for our listeners. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Car Wash M&A, the podcast, with your host, Lanese Barnett. Like what you hear? Subscribe to our podcast feed and leave us a review or follow us on social media at Amplify Car Wash Advisors. Want more M&A information? Visit our website at amplifywash.com and listen for new episodes on the last Thursday of each month.